Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the Jayden Bryce Show, the show where we talk about the hottest topics in the world of sports. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that correctly. I've been contemplating the idea of separating my pop culture content and my sports content into two separate shows. As of today, I've made the tough decision for me. I put a lot of thought into it. I am going to, as of this week, separate my pop culture content from my sports content. So now the Jayden Bryce Show will be specifically a sports show. And I am in the process of right now starting another show. I don't know if I'm going to go with the current name, but I'm going to call it right now Hall of Heroes with starring Jayden. It is going to be a weekly show, more than likely once a week, where we get together and just talk about some pop culture stuff, latest news, trailer reactions, and things of that nature. I have not been doing a lot with my pop culture content, so that is something that I'm going to be doing this week, so be tuned into that, guys. And I'm looking forward to that, and I think it's going to be very fun. It's not going to be nowhere near as serious as this. It's going to be like a kind of thing where you just come in and we're just going to have some fun together. It's more, you're going to be more of your typical live stream, so to speak, if you would like to call it that. So be on the lookout for that this week. But ladies and gentlemen, we got a hot show for you guys. Big slate of football over the weekend, as you can see from the thumbnail of the stream. We're going to talk about my Dallas Cowboys. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about the Eagles and the Rams. We're going to talk about the Giants and the Chiefs. And then we're going to end it off again with something about the Cowboys. Thank you guys for joining me. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's not delay it no further, and let's get right to the madness. The Dallas Cowboys. Where do I even start? Yesterday was an absolute atrocity. On every count and front that you can think of. The Dallas Cowboys put on display the reason why they can be regarded as one of the most mediocre teams to go on towards the rest of the season. And the reason why that they're not going to do anything this year. Because currently, as presently constructed, they have one of the worst, absolute worst defenses in the NFL. And it's not even close. They have some troubling numbers associated to their name. And we're going to go over them right here as we speak. Here are the numbers that the Dallas Cowboys are currently ranked at defensively. They are 31st in yards allowed. They're 30th in touchdowns allowed. And they're 29th in completion percentage allowed. They are horrible. And this was going into the game, the difference between the offense and the defense. The Dallas Cowboys offensively were ranked 5th in points per game. They were ranked 3rd in yards per game and 1st in third down percentage. What about the defense through 2 weeks? Going into the game. They were ranked 27th in points per game, 30th in yards per game, and they ranked dead last in third down percentages. The defense is absolutely horrible. They're horrible. They cannot stop a cold. They can't stop a nosebleed. They cannot stop anybody. Yesterday, they single-handedly made Caleb Williams look like Joe Montana. Caleb Williams was balling. Caleb Williams, the box score is in the lower third, but I'm going to give it to you here. He was 19 for 28, almost 300 yards, averaged 10 yards a throw, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and had a near perfect passer rating. He had a 142 passer rating and a QBR of 86. Not to mention the plethora of receivers that were wide open. It was just an all-around bad performance on all fronts. And we're just going to continue with the stats. Dallas's opposing passer rating allowed through 3 games defensively is 125.3, which is the highest passer rating the Cowboys have allowed through 3 games in history. Here are the stats for the defensive rankings in franchise history through 3 games. They have given up the worst passer rating in the history of the franchise through 3 games. They've given up the worst completion percentage, second worst yards per play, third worst passing yards, and the third worst points. That's where they rank through 3 games in the history of the franchise. Caleb Williams yesterday, for the first time in his career, wasn't sacked against an offensive line who the Bears thought at the time the position they thought they had upgraded, but that doesn't seem to be the case. This offensive line that we are talking about, who has through 2 weeks given up a good amount of sacks, and Caleb Williams has been rushed, been pressured, having to make plays out of the pocket, and throw errant throws. What about yesterday? Caleb Williams was able to call his girlfriend, talk to his mom, make him a sandwich, bake cookies, and do whatever he wanted to do. Because the Dallas Cowboys couldn't sniff him in the pocket yesterday. It was horrible. The defense. Every time Caleb Williams stepped back to throw, I thought Dallas was about to give up a 45-yard bomb every play. I think Stephen A. this morning, I've consumed so much sports media as of today that I could lose my brain just talking about this game. I think Stephen A. said something very interesting to the fact where I think it was 4 separate throws in the first half. The Cowboys gave up a 40-yard bomb, another 40-yard bomb, a 30-yard bomb, and like a 28-yard bomb. First touchdown for the Bears, Rome Odunze doesn't even run a route. It's just a straight free release. Diggs tries to jam him at the line, and he fumbles and trips himself in the process, causing Rome Odunze to just say, "Thank you, Trayvon Diggs." What about Cole Kmet and his touchdown pass in the red zone near the end of the first half, where he literally split the middle of dang near 4 or 5 Cowboys defenders? I kept rewatching the film, and when I saw the touchdown, there were 4 to 5 white jerseys in the vicinity, but nobody seemed to cover him. What about the play on 4th down? They went for it on 4th and goal on their own 5-yard line. They were up 17 at the time, if I'm not mistaken. No, I think they were up 10 at the time. I think this was when the score was roughly 24 to 14. 4th and 5 on their own. 4th and 5, you're up 10. You know, the Dallas Cowboys offense, they are worthy of answering. We'll get to the offense, but they were able to do pretty much anything they wanted to on offense. But 4th and 5, it was just so disrespectful. I was sitting there like, what coach in their right mind against any type of credible or super efficient defense would even remotely thinking about going for it on the opponent's 5-yard line on 4th and goal when you're only up 10. Not many coaches will do that, maybe outside of Dan Campbell. But Ben Johnson did it. And lo and behold, Caleb Williams drops back to pass. And this wasn't no fake either. It wasn't no like try and draw the defense offsides. Granted, if they did get an offsides penalty, it would only been half the distance of the goal. But still, gets it, snaps it, no hard count or nothing. Free snap. Caleb Williams just he strolls out to the right, sidearms it to DJ Moore, wide open in the end zone. Malik Hooker just sitting here like, I don't know. Guys, when I tell you that I've never seen these defensive backs this bad, it is bad. I don't know if I want to compare it to Mike Nolan. I can't, Mike Nolan was back in 2020. COVID year, it was just so many things went wrong. At that time, I was 16 years old. I wasn't covering football that well. I can't vividly remember like the difference between the Mike Nolan defense back in 2020 versus the defense this year. I cannot tell you which one is worse. But I promise you this. I have never, not only from the Cowboys' point of view, just in a defense in general, I've never seen a defense that has miscommunication issues to the extent that the Cowboys have. Every single time yesterday, we saw DBs, Malik Hooker, Trayvon Diggs, everybody looking at each other like, why aren't you here? Why aren't you? It's bad. I don't know if this has to do with my Eberflus. I don't know if this is coaching. I learned from a good friend of mine, never assume like you know everything. I don't know. I'm not going to act like I know everything. I'm not going to sit here and blame this on the coaches or blame this on the players. But I bet you this, a lot of the accountability, most of it has to be on the players. What else do you want the coach to do? Especially in a situation with Cole Kmet. The guy, Cole Kmet, runs a post in the middle of the defense, and there's 4 white jerseys in the vicinity. You're telling me not one of you guys could have thought, hey, let's cover the guy who's wide open in the end zone. It's just absolutely bad. Matt Eberflus is going to end up being the scapegoat for this reason, but I think Matt Eberflus can coach defense. When he was with the Indianapolis Colts, they were one of the best defenses in the league at the time when Darius Leonard was having 2 all-pro back-to-back seasons. I know the man ain't all of a sudden forgot how to coach defense. Maybe he has. I may be wrong. But the performance of the defense, and this is what is super troubling for me. You had a defense who, the first half of the Eagles game in week 1, couldn't stop a cold. But in the second half, after the lightning delay, it's like they knew how to play defense, and it's something that you thought you could build upon. But the past 2 weeks and back-to-back weeks, you've made Russell Wilson look like Russell Wilson of 2013 when he was winning Super Bowls. And yesterday, you made Caleb Williams looking like the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. It's that bad. We're talking about a Russell Wilson who, as of right now, and we're going to talk about Russell Wilson later, he's only been able to muster up, not counting the Cowboys game, in the games that he's played against the Commanders and against the Chiefs yesterday, he's only been able to muster 15 points worth of offense at the quarterback position. I don't even think he's even through for half of the yardage that within those 2 games that he got against the Dallas Cowboys in week 2 last week. This is how abysmal this Dallas Cowboys defense is. Now, what is something that we can say? And let's go ahead and we'll alleviate away from the defensive side of the Cowboys for a minute. We're going to talk about the Cowboys. What is it about the Dallas Cowboys that we said that they need to do in order to win? You got to run the ball and stop the run. They have been able to do both. Javonte Williams yesterday carried the ball 10 times for 76 yards. The very first drive of the game, Javonte Williams was all of the offense. He got a screen pass and went chunk plays all day yesterday. Javonte Williams averaged 7.6 yards a carry. Miles Sanders, 4.6 yards a carry. What about the Bears? DeAndre Swift averaged 2.5 yards a carry. They can run the ball and they can stop the run, but guess what? They can pass the ball on offense and they can get gashed in the pass game on defense. I don't know. I think the defensive tackles have been doing a great job. I think this is definitely an edge rushing problem. This is a defensive back problem. And we leave it there. I don't think Malik Hooker's good anymore. I've never thought Donovan Wilson is nowhere near as good as he ever was. He's a box safety. He's literally a hybrid linebacker. He's that type of guy you bring in the box, stop to run, and he's not even that good at that. Donovan Wilson is just not a good player. Marquez Bell, who people are arguing to sub him in for, he's not a good player either. What about the edge rushers? Donovan Ezeraku, he's really the only person I've seen off the edge get consistent pressure. Sam Williams has been a no-show. I don't know if it's just because he's coming off the torn ACL, but he looks like a shell of himself from a couple of years ago when he was lined up on the other side of Micah Parsons, and we were sitting here like, dang, what is there going to be a day where we are inevitably able to see him and Micah Parsons be on the edge together? This is the type of conversation that Sam Williams is in, but he's non-existent. Sam Williams, not Sam Williams, but I got a brain fart right now. I cannot think of the edge rusher for the Dallas Cowboys. He's wearing number Sam. Is it Sam Wilson? Sam Wilson? I cannot think. Hold on, I'm about to get it. I should know it, but it's on the top of my lungs. It's on the tip of my tongue. I cannot think. Give me 1 second. Defensive end. Let's see. Dante Fowler. Jesus. Dante Fowler, 13. He can't do anything either. He done pretty good in Washington last year, but he's not been able to muster up any type of pressure. Donovan Ezaraku, again, is the only guy. James Houston, he never gets in. Marshawn Nealon, have not seen him. The edge position has been an absolute problem for the Dallas Cowboys. What about safety? Maybe try Wanye Thompson. I don't know. There's just so much going on. Now, let's get past that. Dak, yesterday, I thought played well. Given to CD going out in the first drive of the game, we got news that he is not going to be available next week against the Packers. He's going to get reevaluated in roughly 10 to 14 days per Adam Schefter. So who knows? And we'll get that later on down the road when we talk about the future of the Dallas Cowboys. But they were able to still run the ball efficiently. I thought Dak did a good job getting the ball to George Pickens. The 2 interceptions that Dak logged in this game, one of them was off the hands of George Pickens. Wide open pass, hits him right in the chest. And then the second one, the game, garbage time. The game was over with. You were down 17. If you would have even got that touchdown, you still had no shot of coming back. You were just trying to pretty much force it at that point. I did not think Dak played bad, not one degree. Offensively, I think they did good to me. I mean, I'm loving Brian Schottenheimer's play calling, and the Cowboys on offense looks good. It's just, if they are going to want to compete, they're going to have to score 35 points a game. And that is something that you cannot count on Dak Prescott to do, because when Dak Prescott presses, that's when Dak Prescott is at his worst. You want Dak Prescott to be not really have to, per se, play with the lead, but you can have a Dak Prescott who keeps it close. He's still able to rely on his run game, and he can get you a win that way. Dak Prescott threw the ball 40 times. You're not winning with Dak Prescott throwing the ball 40 times. Dak should have threw the ball 25 times, and Javonte Williams should have got 20 carries. That's the formula for success for the Dallas Cowboys. Let's move on to the Bears, though. Let's get away from the losers. Let's talk some winners here. Caleb Williams, you can't take much of this performance because the majority of the time he was not getting pressured. As I stated earlier, he was texting his girlfriend, making him a sandwich and everything else in that pocket that he had. But let's just talk about it from this degree. This is an encouraging performance if you're a Bear. And if you're a coach in the Bears organization, and if you're a fan. Because you see the potential that Caleb Williams has at the quarterback position. Now, there's an interesting way you can think about this as well. Was this more about the Cowboys defense or Caleb Williams' performance at the quarterback position? I think it had more to do about the Dallas Cowboys defense without a shadow of a doubt. Because with good defenses, last week he played the Lions, which they don't have the best defense of all time. And the week before that, he played the Minnesota Vikings. They have a great defense as well. It's like a top 5 defense in the league. So Caleb Williams has went through a gauntlet of defenses the first 2 weeks of the season. And then when it's a tune-up game, and my dad said this, and it was a good way to put it. He had a buddy of his who was a Bears fan. If Caleb Williams was looking for a nice tune-up game to get his momentum back, it was to play the Dallas Cowboys. But, I don't want to take all the credit away from Caleb Williams. He made some throws. He was able to get out of the pocket, show that arm talent he's got, threw that bomb on the flea flicker to Luther Burden. The only thing I can say that I saw that he had a problem with yesterday, he skeeted a couple balls short for some odd reason. I don't know why Caleb Williams was doing that so much. He ran the ball well. Just Caleb Williams was good. But it's not saying much. He was protected by the offensive line, And I'm say the statement I just said, not saying much because you went up against the Dallas Cowboys. Next week you go up against the Las Vegas Raiders. So are you going to be able to put this type of performance together leading into the Vegas Raiders? It's a winnable game. And then you go into your bye week. Can you get to 2-2? And make your way back in a very tough division with the Minnesota Vikings, who dominated the Cincinnati Bengals yesterday. They scored 40 points with Carson Wentz. A lot of that had to do with some 2 pick sixes, but did we got the Detroit Lions? What are they going to look like tonight against the Baltimore Ravens? That's going to be wait to be seen. And then we already know the juggernaut that the Packers are, and granted, they dropped the ball against the Browns, and we'll discuss that in another date. But yeah, I'm going to save all the stuff later on for the Dallas Cowboys as far as just the rant, the future, and things. But they're bad. It's not a good ball club. They're lacking talent. The secondary is arguably the worst in the league. And there's just nothing to be excited about moving forward. There's no reason to be optimistic about this team moving forward. Nothing excites me about the idea of, the Cowboys offense led by Dak Prescott having to play hero ball. That is something that I'm not interested in. And I'm not happy to be even, I have no reason to be happy about. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with this game. It was an absolute atrocity. It was a pretty laughable performance, and this is something that I can say too. I say that I'm frustrated, but I'm really not surprised. This is sort of the Dallas Cowboys team I thought I would more than likely see this year, even if Micah Parsons would have been on that defensive line for the Dallas Cowboys. I just think they lack talent, and they just don't have the players. Without Micah Parsons, how many first-round picks do they have starting on the defensive side of the ball for them? Mozzie Smith, and he's a bust. Stan Williams, he was a second-rounder. I think Dante Fowler might have been a first-rounder, but Dante Fowler is in the latter part of his career. Kenny Clark maybe was a first-rounder. I'm not 100% sure. You have no guys. I mean, outside of Kenny Clark, Kenneth Murray, some of them flash across the screen, but you got no guys on the defensive side of the ball who flash across the screen. But, that's neither here nor there. We're getting away from the game. But the game was bad. And, with the news of CeeDee Lamb, it's a tough time down there in Big D. This week, that film is not going to be happy to go through. And I'm sure Coach Shoddy, he is not going to be a happy man to see that tape, specifically on the defensive side of the football. The Bears get your first win under Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, they were creative. And it's just, it's very disheartening to see that the Dallas Cowboys is this bad. And the Chicago Bears were finally able to see what Caleb Williams could possibly look like. And maybe they can make a run, beat the Raiders coming up next week, because it is doable, because they are not a good ball club. And maybe they can start making a shot for the Super Bowl coming off the bye. Well, not really the Super Bowl. They're not going to make the Super Bowl, but get a playoff win. The Chicago Bears, just the franchise, would love to get their first playoff win. But we're going to end the conversation there. What do you guys think about this? What do you think about the Bears and how they played yesterday? What did you think about the Dallas Cowboys? I could have went on a rant for another 25 minutes talking about this, but we'll save this for the last segment of the show when we talk about the future of the Dallas Cowboys. I want to know all of your comments down below. All right, guys. Let's move on to our next topic. We're going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and the Los Angeles Rams. This game here was a tough one for me to watch personally. I was out with some friends having lunch and stuff, and I had problems with my phone trying to watch the game. It was stuttering, it was buffing, and I had so many issues with that. But this game was hilarious. Now, the Rams should have won this game. I still don't understand to the life of me how the Philadelphia Eagles came back, but this is a testament of the Philadelphia Eagles. They are a super resilient team. This has been their culture under Nick Sirianni. We've seen this multiple times by the Philadelphia Eagles where It's like the first half, they don't know how to play football on the offensive side of the ball, and all of a sudden, Jalen Hurts and the guys just come out in the second half and just have an absolute masterclass. Apart from the very first drive of the second half, offensively for the Philadelphia Eagles, where Jalen Hurts fumbles the ball, they were sensational. They were great in the second half. This was a classic Philadelphia Eagles game. Philly fans, are you happy? I think the Kevin Patullo, I think is the name of their offensive coordinator. Do you see what happens when you start giving your star player the ball? Literally. You could tell the difference from when Jalen Hurts goes off script. Because Jalen Hurts, when he drops back all this year, I've seen Jalen Hurts really sit, catches the ball in his drop back. He's progressing, going through his progressions. Yesterday, in the second half, he said, screw all that. Where's number 11? And I'm going to go give him the football in the second half. Because the LA Rams cannot cover the guy. There's an interesting stat. I don't have it. See if I can look it up right here, right quick. If we have it. I don't know if I'm being able to find it because I used it. See, I think I might have it here. Okay, let's see. Nope, it's not it. Okay, this might be it here. A.J. Brown versus the Rams last year. 6 receptions for 109 yards, 1 touchdown. A.J. Brown again. 6 receptions for 109 yards. A.J. Brown loves playing against the LA Rams. He just does. And this is what happens when you give your star player the ball. We've had all these conversations with the Philadelphia Eagles the past couple of weeks. Their offense has been absolute garbage. I think in the first half of this game, Jalen Hurts and the offense had like a net yardage of negative some yards. The offense in the first half was absolutely abysmal. They were bad. And in the second half, just flip the switch. I think Cam Newton said this morning on First Take, at the beginning of the third quarter, Jalen Hurts was 4 for 9 and ended up with 21 for 32, 226 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. The guy Jalen Hurts just knows how to win. He finds a way to win, and this is something that under Nick Sirianni, and I just said earlier, they found a way to do this in their culture. This is who the Philadelphia Eagles are. This is the type of organization and type of culture that they have set. This is the Super Bowl winning Eagles. These are the Philadelphia Eagles that are right now in consideration as Super Bowl contenders. The defense, getting to the quarterback, getting turnovers, and offensively, you're playing complementary football. You weren't able to run the ball at all yesterday with Saquon. And what happens? You make adjustments in the second half. You give A.J. Brown the football. And you come away with a comeback victory. Now, they needed a little luck to go in their way. And I wouldn't really classify it mostly as luck because, like I said earlier, I didn't get to watch the game. I didn't know before they blocked the final punt. Jordan Davis blocked the final punt at the end of the game. The field goal, excuse me. I did not know that they actually blocked another field goal earlier in the game. So, no, this is not luck. Obviously, there was something going wrong there with the procedure. I don't know if Sean McVay just forgot to practice special teams this week. But, man, Sean McVay, he's not going to be happy with how the Los Angeles Rams were yesterday. It was bad. So, let's move on to the Rams, though. The Rams looked like they were ready to blow the doors off of the Philadelphia Eagles. They looked like they were ready to blow them out the water. If I'm not mistaken, 100%, I think the score was 26. The score was 26-9. Yeah, that sounds about right. The score was 26-9 in the third quarter. And the Eagles end up scoring 33 points. Ladies and gentlemen, they ended up coming up with 24 points in the second half. That is absolutely crazy. No, take that back. They ended up coming up with 26 points. Wow. Let me take it back. It was actually 26-7 in the third quarter. They came up with 24 points. That's bad. That is bad for the Los Angeles Rams. They got too complacent in the second half. They got away from what they were doing. Matt Stafford missed a couple throws. They shot away from the run game. Bad play calling, specifically on that fourth down call there in the middle of the field when they went for it on 4th and 1. You tried to run it up the gut with Kyron Williams. The defensive line led by Jordan Davis of the Philadelphia Eagles sniffed that out, and they knew that's what you were going to do. I was not 100% a fan of that call. It's just bad play calling all around and just bad situational awareness. Not being aggressive, which they were trying to be aggressive, but they weren't aggressive when they needed to be 100% aggressive. And Matt Stafford got pressured a lot. He came away getting, when Puka Nacua had that one catch and they had to review it because they thought it hit the ground and they ended up overturning the call. You saw where Matt Stafford, he got absolutely clobbered and he came up just holding his back. The Rams are Super Bowl contenders. I really do think this is back-to-back times in the NFC divisional round last year and in this game yesterday. The Rams should have won both of these games. Should have. But yeah, both times they done something stupid. Did not have good game management, and the game got away from them. Now, they are capable of beating the Philadelphia Eagles. I really do. If they were to match up with them again, both of these times they've matched up against the Philadelphia Eagles in Philly. Now in the playoffs, will they match up against Philly? I don't know. Is that going to be at home? Or are they going to be at Philly or are they going to be in LA? I think either way, the Eagles are going to have the home field advantage. But at the next time the Rams play the Eagles, they are capable of beating the Eagles. But what do they have to do better? They have to be able to contain the middle with Jalen Carter. That is where the interior pass rush that the Eagles had on the Rams yesterday was getting home. Like I just said earlier, where Matt Stafford getting hurt. You cannot have that. You got to be able to protect Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford is not a mobile quarterback. If you guys remember that third down play or in the second half where Matt Stafford was rolling out to the left, Matt Stafford looked horrendously slow. Like he just looked horrendously slow. So he's not a mobile quarterback. So he's a pocket passer. You got to protect him. And the offensive line, the interior of that offensive line, they traded away some guys. Did not do a good job protecting Matthew Stafford yesterday. And the Eagles were ready. They were able to tee off, led by Jalen Carter in the interior. And that's what really decided the ball game. So they have to be able to contain the interior rush of the Eagles. Also, A.J. Brown, you got to be able to account for him. This is another game in a row where A.J. Brown just pretty much bullied your defensive backs. When I mean bullied, there was this one catch that A.J. Brown made on the little in route, and he just, the DB was draped all over him, and A.J. Brown just stiff arms him off in the middle of the catch, and I'm like just sitting here like, are we serious right now? The Rams are capable. They're contenders. They should have won this game. But Stafford's got to stay healthy, and they got to get better at defensive back. At the trade deadline, and I know this is a name that they've brought up a couple of times, and it's an interesting thing. Name 2, L'Jarius Sneed, somebody who the Chiefs let walk. He's on the Tennessee Titans right now. We see what the Tennessee Titans are doing over there with Brian Callahan and his foolishness operation they got going on over there in Tennessee. Is that a name who could possibly be up on the trade market? The Rams got to get somebody at defensive back position because that's where they are lacking at. Now, their defensive line, absolutely phenomenal. They sacked Jalen Hurts a lot yesterday. They were able to stop the run and contain Saquon. The Eagles and the Rams are like the powerhouses right now in the NFC. I think the Rams are the ultimate team that can get in the way of the Eagles winning another Super Bowl in the NFC or getting to the NFC Championship game. The Rams are that team. I don't see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers being that team to beat the Eagles. I don't see the Lions being that team. And I think I'm missing another team. Or the Packers. I think right now it's presently constructed. Even though I think the Packers, but I don't trust Jordan Love. As presently constructed, I think The Packers are like number 2, and maybe the Bucs is number 3. But I think the Rams are the number 1 contenders right now to dethrone the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC. Because we saw it yesterday. They should have won this game. Field goals. Just got a block. And you win the ball game. And even though the offense was anemic throughout all of the second half, I think they only mustered just the 1 touchdown in the first drive they had in the third quarter offensively. But when time came and you needed it most, Matt Stafford led his team down the field and got a pretty chip shot field goal attempt, but they wasn't able to complete it. So it's just a couple things that the Rams have to clean up, and the Rams are going to be contenders, and they can make a lot of noise in the NFC West. And we know they're not in a great division right now, even though the Arizona Cardinals, I think they're a little overrated. We know the San Francisco, they're super beat up. We got some news about, Joey Bosa tearing his ACL today. That was tragic news. And Seattle, I don't know. I think the Rams are the cream of the crop in that division. And I think ultimately they are the biggest contenders to the Philadelphia Eagles in competing for the NFC title. It was a great matchup yesterday. 2 powerhouses, and I'm interested to see how they are going to square off, hopefully, in another rematch in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think? And I want to know all of your comments down below. All right. Let's move on to our very next game before we end the show off talking about my Dallas Cowboys. The Chiefs versus the New York Giants. This game was absolutely beautiful. You're going to see it right here in my lower third. The Chiefs defeat Giants in a snooze fest. Guys, this game was absolutely bad. It was a bad game. It was boring. Sunday Night Football, second straight Sunday Night Football game. That was absolutely atrocious. I don't understand for the life of me why the Rams and the Eagles was not the Sunday Night Football game. I don't even know why it was not a 1 o'clock game and it wasn't nationally televised. They should have, and I even said this to somebody yesterday, they should have swapped out the Dallas Cowboys and the Bears for the Rams and the Eagles. That should have been America's game of the week. I understand it's the Dallas Cowboys and Chicago, 2 super big markets. I get it, but still. Rams, Eagles, such a better matchup to watch. But let's get to this game. And let's talk about the Chiefs. The offense is still not where it needs to be. And I got to be totally honest with you. The Chiefs right now, I think their defense is good enough to get them to a Super Bowl. But at some point, this offense has to get consistent. We need that Kansas City Chiefs offense that was pretty much when they got the ball, you were scared. You were super, super scared. And I was about, I was trying to find a word to use. That's why I said super, super scared. Couldn't find a word without having to use a cuss word. But you were terrified of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs scoring a touchdown when they got the ball. With this offense that they have right now, teams are not scared of Patrick Mahomes getting the football and scoring on them. They're not. When I watched the Chiefs yesterday, when they got the ball, I was not 100% certain and confident that they were going to score. Because kicking field goals are going to get you beat. They can't score touchdowns. Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes does not seem like they cannot get on one accord. Travis Kelce looks slow. He does not look interested into the game. It's the same things that he did last week that caused his team to lose. You have to find a way to score touchdowns like they did in the second half. They scored 2 touchdowns in the second half, but that has to happen throughout the entirety of a game. 22 points, a very sloppy 22 points of that is not good enough to win ball games against a team coached by Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, or a team like the Buffalo Bills, or even the Baltimore Ravens, who they play next week. And that is going to be a super interesting matchup to see where the Chiefs match up against a team like the Ravens. Because if they cannot beat the Ravens, they're in a tough spot. But we'll get to that. We want to focus on this game. Thornton, he was pretty good. And he's right now seems like the only viable target for Patrick Mahomes at the moment. And the only person that Patrick Mahomes seems comfortable to go to. Tyquan Thornton had 5 catches for 71 yards and 1 touchdown. Travis Kelce, 4 for 26, absolutely non-existent. Juju Smith-Schuster, he made a couple catches here or there. The run game for the Kansas City Chiefs are still not able to get underway. They're still not firing on all cylinders quite yet, and they still leave a lot to be desired. But with that, as well as their defense is playing, and their defense is playing at a really high level right now, and they are the only reason why the Chiefs have been even having a chance to win these last couple of games that they have been able, been in. With that defense, and granted, the defense, they've been on the field a lot. They have not been able to, and the Chiefs' offense has not been able to manage the time of possession. They cannot keep the ball in their hands on offense. They're leaving the defense out there, Chris Jones and everybody. Can they get injured down the road? That is a big factor that could play a part in this. But I really do think if Rashee Rice comes back alongside Xavier Worthy, I really do think that the Kansas City Chiefs can get back some of their sparkle. Some of their sparkle. I don't think they'll get all of it, but I think they can get back some of their sparkle. I think Rashee Rice was in a Pro Bowl caliber mode last year, and coming off the season he had before going into last year, back in 2023. And Xavier Worthy, he's another guy that can hit his head on the goalpost. He was a vital target for Patrick Mahomes last year. So these are very, very important people that Patrick Mahomes lost and are not currently in the lineup. When they get in it, I think the offense for the Kansas City Chiefs is going to flourish. So I want to wait, and I want to pump the brakes before we just continue to say that the Chiefs are trash. They don't have a chance to win the AFC West. Now, granted, the Chargers look very good, and I wouldn't be 100% surprised if the Chargers win the West, because I think they have the better team and roster overall right now. But I don't want to 100% knock off the Chiefs, because I think the Chiefs, if they can get those 2 weapon backs, pivotal weapons, with the way the defense is playing, I think they can be really well. Now let's move on to the other team. Russell Wilson and the Giants. Look, the Giants are bad. Look, they had their little honeymoon game against the Dallas Cowboys. Russell Wilson threw for 450 yards, blah, blah, blah. It was against a trash defense. And we saw that with Caleb Williams this week. Let's give credit to their defense. Their defense did a pretty good job yesterday. They were able to get to Patrick Mahomes at will. I don't even know how many sacks they had. I think they had 2 sacks. They had a lot of pressures, 7 QB hits. They did a job. They did a job yesterday. I think even their back end, and that's been their most, compromising part of their defense, they did a pretty good job as well. And the Giants, they're in a tough spot. Do you put in Jackson Dart? I don't know. Do you keep Russell Wilson in? I don't know. These are questions that they're going to be asking themselves. And there came out an article today. Brian Daboll has said all things are on the table so far right now heading into Sunday. So they're saying that a QB carousel may be in consideration because Russell Wilson has been bad. He's been bad. And if you want to be a testament to this, and if you want me to double down on this, just go watch the highlights of the game. And I did look at the highlights to just get a refresher for, when I was planning my show. Go back and look at the highlights and look at the final, the 4 downs in that final sequence on our last drive of the game in the red zone, where Russell Wilson threw the ball towards the back of the end zone, like 2 out of the 4 downs. It was just bad. It was bad. It was just absolutely abysmal. And I think he got intentional grounding as well. It was just bad. Russ looks like a shell of himself. He looks washed. The offense cannot do anything. There was this interesting stat that Dan Orlowski came up with today that stated Russell Wilson is 16 for 32 targeting Malik Neighbors this season. They have not been able to mesh on any type of front so far this year. Even just taking away last week's performance against the Dallas Cowboys, most of Malik Neighbors' targets came over the top, when Russell Wilson was just throwing a prayer. But Russ just looked bad yesterday. Even towards the end of the second half, that interception he threw in the end zone, forcing the ball to Malik Neighbors, it was bad. He's not accurate. He's not seeing the field well. And if Brian Daboll wants to save his job, Jackson Dart is going to be trotting out there for meaningful snaps. He was out there yesterday for a couple of snaps. They were run plays. But Jackson Dart, I think coming into next week, he is going to be taking meaningful snaps at the quarterback position. He is going to actually throw the football. And Russell Wilson has done this to himself. I know he stated when he's, after he won, he said he heard all the noise, and then everybody in week 2 thought he shut up the noise, but you just cannot come out here against the defending AFC champs, home opener of the season, and drop the ball like this. 18 for 32, 160 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. When you got an offense with Malik Neighbors at the wide receiver position, somebody like Cam Scatabo, he was running the ball well, catching the ball. He averaged 6 yards a rush yesterday. And you only muster 9 points? It's unacceptable. And at one point when Brian Burns got hurt in the second half, and I tweeted it on Twitter, the New York Giants fans were literally shouting, "We want Jackson," when Brian Burns was trying to get helped off the field. That is how fed up these fans are with Russell Wilson. He's just not good. Let Russ cook, but Russ has been cooking for just a little too long, and I think the sun has set on his career. It did not work in Denver with Sean Payton. How do you expect it to work in Pittsburgh, and how did you expect it to work in New York with Brian Daboll? I think the stat came out that it's been December since Russell Wilson last won a game. We know how he ended the season last year with the Pittsburgh Steelers, losing 6 straight games. And he's not the answer. I have been on the side of, when it refers to starting these young quarterbacks, do you let them sit or do you start them right away? I've always been an advocate for just not starting them right away, letting them sit. But at this point, for Brian Daboll to save his job, you might have to start Jackson Dart, because offensively they scored 15 points in 2 games. Not counting the Dallas Cowboys game. In 2 games, they've scored 15 points. With an offense with Malik Neighbors at quarterback, at wide receiver, and Cam Scatabo at the running back position. The offensive line is not the best. That's another reason why you really don't want to trot Jackson Dart out there. There's multiple of reasons why. But if Brian Daboll wants to save his job, it's going to have to be the answer. If you want to go half and half, make it more competitive, try and get a little, competitive juices out of Brian Daboll. Get a little bit of competitive juices out of Russell Wilson and Jackson Dart. But you got to do something. And something's got to give. And just the Kansas City Chiefs, they're bad. They're not a top 10 team right now. If they were in the playoffs, I would not be shocked if they made the playoffs as presently constructed. And they are a one-and-done team. In the trade deadline, I would possibly be looking at a receiver position. I would be checking on Tyreek Hill. Maybe even a running back. But both of these teams have a lot of issues after last night's game. And the Giants have them. You can argue that the Giants might have the most glaring ones. You may argue that the Chiefs may have the most glaring ones. But we can all come together and say that that game was pretty bad. It's pretty abysmal to watch. Not fun whatsoever. And hopefully this coming up week, we got the Dallas Cowboys meeting the Green Bay Packers on Sunday night. But I think that's going to be an absolute blowout. I think the Packers, coming off an embarrassing loss against the Cleveland Browns, I think they might end up beating the Dallas Cowboys by 17 plus. You know, you got somebody named Micah Parsons coming into town. You know, but that's neither here nor there. What do you guys think? I want to know all of your comments down below. All right, ladies and gentlemen, moving on to our very last topic of today's show. What about, and I discussed it previously, what about the future of the Dallas Cowboys? The Cowboys are currently 1-2. They are a 64-yard field goal away from being 0-3. We've seen bits of good. We've seen a lot of bad. But mostly, it's been bad. The season, I think, is a wash. I do not think the Cowboys are going to beat the Green Bay Packers. So that means you're going to be 1-3, potentially, after week 4. The odds of a team making the playoffs being 1-3 is not high. I think really the only team that has been successfully able to do such a feat have been the Cincinnati Bengals, lastly under Joe Burrow, because you got somebody like Joe Burrow who is a phenomenal quarterback and a phenomenal talent. But let's just get a look at the schedule moving on for the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys will play Green Bay. They can win. They can beat New York. Can they beat Carolina? Carolina put up 30 points against the Falcons yesterday. That's not a gimme, and they're playing at Carolina. Who knows? They're not going to beat Washington at Washington. Well, that's at Dallas, but they're going to trade. I don't think they're going to beat Washington. I don't think they're going to beat Denver. Arizona, they never play well against Arizona. Kyler Murray just loves playing in Dallas for some reason. You can beat Las Vegas. You're not beating Philly. I don't know if you can beat Kansas City. If they get better at that point in time with Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, who knows? Detroit, I don't think you can beat them. Minnesota, maybe. If J.J. McCarthy's still playing like crap, maybe. You're not beating the Chargers. I say you'll trade one with Washington, and I think you'll beat the Giants. So out of these victories, I count 1, 2, 3, 4. I count 4 surefire victories right now on the schedule. 4. Where does that put the Dallas Cowboys? 4-13. One of the worst teams, bottom teams in the league. Because you couldn't beat the Chicago Bears. And you look that bad against the Chicago Bears. The defense cannot stop a cold. If you let Caleb Williams do that to you, what else do you think these other quarterbacks on this list is going to do? You're going to have to face Jordan Love. Jordan Love coming off a horrible game. He is due for a tune-up game. What about Tyrod Taylor? Tyrod Taylor almost came back against the New York Jets. Who knows if Justin Fields might be back. We saw what he did week 1 against a bad Steelers defense. If they can do that against the Steelers defense, what makes you think they can do against the Dallas Cowboys defense? You're going to have to face Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts again, Patrick Mahomes, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert. These are the quarterbacks that you're going to have to face. And if Caleb Williams was able to do that against this defense, who knows what these other quarterbacks are going to do. I think the defense needs a complete overhaul. I've seen Jerry Jones come out with these quotes saying, that they're looking to make a move towards the trade deadline. I don't think they should. I think it would be an absolute misfire to even consider making a trade. This team is not close. They're not contending. It would be a waste of assets. Save them and use them for the future. I would possibly even try and get off of a couple of players. Maybe get off Trayvon Diggs. Trayvon Diggs looks like a shell of himself. Maybe he can get healthy. I don't know. I'm just throwing out the defense needs a complete overhaul. If the defense continues to look putrid in the next couple of weeks, I say you go ahead and get rid of Matt Eberflus just to see if you can muster up any type of just momentum at all on the defensive side of the football, any positive things to carry over into next season. The offense is great. The offense, to me, is a top 5 offense in the NFL, fully healthy. I gave you the numbers early on in the show. They were top 5 in almost every category. They are able to run the ball at will, which is something that the Dallas Cowboys has not been able to do since Dak Prescott's rookie year, when Ezekiel Elliott was in consideration for Rookie of the Year and MVP. When Ezekiel Elliott was considered the best running back in the league. When the Dallas Cowboys had considered the best offensive line in the league. So that's something positive. Brian Schottenheimer, his play calling, it's been absolutely phenomenal. All of these things is something positive you can take away from the Dallas Cowboys from the offensive side of the ball. But the defense has to get better. The offense is overshadowing the fact that the team is bad. Specifically the defense. What exactly needs to happen on the defensive side of the ball? You need an edge rusher. That should be the focal point going into the draft and even the offseason. Getting some type of edge rusher. I think the nose tackle position, you could get one more guy to shore up that position. You need linebackers. You need pretty much everything. I would slow down at cornerback. I would draft the cornerback, but I think if Diggs can be somewhat okay, he doesn't even have to be fully what he used to be. We got Siobhan Revel in this past draft. Nick Saban said that he can be a guy. He was in Nick Saban's best cornerbacks coming out of this draft in this last draft. Whatever Nick Saban says, I believe. So if Nick Saban believed that, there is a possibility that Siobhan Revel might be good. You already have Deron Bland. We know what he can do. You have Diggs too. So somebody's going to get put in the slot. But you probably get another DB to shore up that position just in case. Bland and Diggs right now cannot even stay on the field. Who knows if Revel's going to be able to stay on the field. But you got to do a complete overhaul of safety. I don't think the safeties are good at all. Malik Hooker is washed. Donovan Wilson has never been good. Marquez Bell, he can't play either. Wanye Thomas has really only been your bright spot, and he's never been utilized. I don't even know if Wanye Thomas has even got any more contract years left on his contract. Who knows? They had to be a complete overhaul. Linebacker, Jake Sanborn, he's been a project just because Matt Eberflus likes him. He's not worked out. Kenneth Murray, he's feast or famine. Damone Clark, he was supposed to be this hitter linebacker out of LSU whenever he had these, I think he had like a back problem or whatever. It was a long fight for him to get back to 100% like he is now, but he's just not good enough at the linebacker position. Overshawn, how is he going to look off of injury? Who knows? Do you even start him? I doubt it, depending on where the Dallas Cowboys are, because, I think they're saying Overshawn's timetable right now is roughly Thanksgiving. And like I said, you get an edge rusher. And you have 2 first-round picks in the upcoming draft. I would look at guys like Caleb Downs at the safety position, the edge rusher out of Miami. There's just so much that the Dallas Cowboys need in order to contend. Now, one can surmise, would the Dallas Cowboys would have been this bad if Micah Parsons was still on the team? I don't know. I think they would possibly be just as bad. I think maybe they could have got extra pressure on Caleb Williams, but I still think the Dallas Cowboys would have been this bad with or without Micah Parsons. They're just missing so much. They have no talent. I think Brian Schottenheimer has been great. Well, I can't say great because if he was great, they'd be 3-0 and be, Super Bowl contenders. But he's been good. The offense has been really, 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 really good. I think they've been prepared to play for the most part. Specifically in week 1, I saw physicality. I haven't quite seen that physicality the last 2 weeks, specifically defensively. I just don't know if I can trust the Dallas Cowboys to do something well with these draft picks. It's just going to have to wait to be seen. They've missed on a couple guys. I don't think Tyler Guyton is going to be as good as the Cowboys hoped he would be. Terrence Steele, he is not continuing to look great. There's just so much negatives and holes in the Dallas Cowboys' roster. It's just a long shot in a conference where you got Jayden Daniels at the quarterback position with Dan Quinn at the helm. You still got Sean McVay in the Rams. You're going to have the Philadelphia Eagles. Who knows if Jackson Dart in New York can get it together. They have talent, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. They just got to put it together. You got the Packers. Who knows about Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. There's just so many teams. The Packers, the Lions, all of these teams. And it's like, if the Cowboys do not hit home on draft picks, they are going to be behind the 8 ball. It's the reality. It's a sad reality, but it is the reality of the Dallas Cowboys. This season, I think, is over. I don't think the Dallas Cowboys are going to make the playoffs. As I pointed out to you, I see 4 surefire victories. That would put the Cowboys roughly at 5-12, and they would be in the fighting for a top 10 pick. There's just so much that the Dallas Cowboys need. I don't know if them first round picks is going to be able to recover all the team needs. You're talking about they need a cornerback. You need multiple safeties. You need linebackers. You need edge rushers. You're not going to be able to supplement all that in one draft. Who knows if you're going to be able to supplement all that in 2 drafts. There's just so many layers of the Dallas Cowboys that need to be fixed that I don't know. I don't know if I trust Will McClay in the front office to be able to get it done. But we're just going to have to wait and see. I just want to talk about the future of the Dallas Cowboys. I think the season is a wash. I don't think they're making the playoffs. We got news of CeeDee Lamb being out for specifically coming up this next week game against the Green Bay Packers. That's not good news. I think they're going to get the break speed off of them with that news. And if they're without CeeDee Lamb, I don't trust the connection right now with George Pickens and Dak. We saw that they got very Jake Ferguson reliant. So it's just not bright skies and Big D. It's really not. But you just got to continue to be optimistic. That is all that we can say. But ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for today's show. That is going to end off today's show. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Like I said, if you're listening and watching, be on the lookout for my upcoming show this week. My new show with Pop Culture, Halls and Heroes. Be on the lookout Wednesday for sports show on Wednesday. We're going to talk about tonight's game with the Lions and the Ravens. That's a good one. So we got a lot of things we're talking about, a lot of exciting things in the future. I thank you guys so much for joining me. Check out my description below. Check out all my videos. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button on the podcast, and check out my podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I thank you guys so much, and I love you guys. Peace, love, and positivity always, y'all. See you.